Carl Friedrich Gauss was born in 1777, but there remains a great deal in Göttingen, Germany relating to him. This is the old observatory in Göttingen. Gauss was director at this observatory from 1807 until his death in 1855. And he didn't just work here, he lived here. His lodgings were in the West Wing, which is to the left here, and here on the right. Names of some of the directors who came after him will be familiar to physics or math history buffs: Wilhelm Weber, Peter Dirichlet, and Carl Schwarzschild, to name a few. People like to make lists of the greatest of all time, like actors and athletes, but we do this with mathematicians as well. And one thing that stays pretty consistent with these lists is that Carl Friedrich Gauss is always very close to the top, in the same company as Sir Isaac Newton and Archimedes. Everywhere you look in Göttingen, you see Gauss honored. So I've started this video with Gauss at his peak, but Gauss came from extremely humble beginnings: poverty, low social status, a father who worked odd jobs, and a mother who was illiterate. During his time as a student at the local elementary school, his teachers noticed his prodigious natural talent for mathematics and brought Gauss to the attention of the Duke of Brunswick. The Duke was so impressed that he sponsored Gauss, paying for better education and further education. Gauss became such a phenomenal mathematician that he was able to contribute to nearly every field of mathematics in the first half of the 19th century. He was also a physicist, and he, along with Wilhelm Weber, developed the first electromagnetic telecommunication. Gauss was not content to publish anything until he had perfected it. In fact, his motto was pauca sed matura, few but ripe. There were many discoveries that he made long before others did that he never published. It's been said that if he had published his work as he created it, he would have advanced mathematics by 50 years. He wanted all of his work to be complete and above criticism. One example of this is his work on non-Euclidean geometry, the geometry of curved space, the sort of thing Einstein needed a century later for relativity theory. A reason for not publishing this work is that it would have been controversial, and he did not want to spend his time arguing, but rather just wanted to keep discovering. Something related to this is another site in Göttingen, Gauss Tower. It's actually nicely visible from Plessa Castle, just outside of Göttingen, which is my vantage point for taking these pictures. Along with his other endeavors, Gauss was a surveyor. As such, he made a large triangle when surveying Hanover, and this tower is built at the site of one of the vertices of that triangle. Because of its size, he could use this triangle for exploring his theories of non-Euclidean geometry. There was an unfortunate consequence of his not publishing in this case, having to do with correspondence with a friend of his, Farkas Bolyai. János Bolyai, the son of Farkas, was a brilliant young man who independently developed a version of non-Euclidean geometry. Farkas sent his son's work to Gauss to get his opinion. After reading Bolyai's work, Gauss wrote to another friend saying,
"I regard this young geometer Bolyai as a genius of the first order."
Unfortunately, what Gauss wrote to Farkas of his son's work was,
"If I begin with the statement that I dare not praise such a work, you will of course be startled for a moment, but I cannot do otherwise. To praise it would amount to praising myself. For the entire content of the work, the path which your son has taken, the results to which he is led, coincide almost exactly with my own meditations, which have occupied my mind for from 30 to 35 years.
Gauss goes on to explain why it was that he hadn't published, expresses delight at being spared the effort, and says,
I am overjoyed that it happens to be the son of my old friend who outstrips me in such a remarkable way.
Gauss was just a straightforward kind of guy, and while he meant this as praise, János, who felt amazement at the wonderful things he had discovered, and who felt he had been the creator of a strange new universe out of nothing, was devastated by the response. Well, this video is about Gauss, not Bolyai, and to be fair, if I tell the story of Bolyai, I really should tell the story of how he encouraged female mathematician Sophie Germain at a time when women were not allowed to study mathematics. But I'll wait to share that story until I do a video on Sophie. Gauss was a professor at the University of Göttingen, which is pictured here. In a newer Göttingen University building, one dedicated entirely to mathematics, which was built about 70 years after Gauss's death, there is a museum of mathematical objects. On one shelf, there is a display of polyhedral models made of paper. The oldest of these were constructed in 1780 by one of Gauss's professors when he was a student there. From the time of Gauss up until the time of World War II, Göttingen was the leading center of mathematics in the world. But this is not the only place that Gauss is honored. Another leading center of mathematics is nearer home for me, and that is UC Berkeley with its Mathematical Sciences Research Institute. The institute is on a hill above the city of Berkeley, with views across San Francisco Bay. The address of the institute is 17 Gauss Way, and there are images embedded within the institute that honor Gauss as well. Sharing just briefly here, they chose 17 as the address since one of Gauss's accomplishments when he was a very young man was to figure out how to construct a 17-sided polygon with a straight edge and compass. One reason this is a big deal is that it's something the ancient Greek mathematicians were unable to accomplish. It was the first progress in regular polygon construction in over 2,000 years, and he did this at the age of 19. One goal of mine in visiting Gttingen was to pay homage to Gauss by visiting his grave. I was surprised to find that the graveyard had been turned into a park, but I was happy to see that his monument was still standing. It's very near to what remains of the old town moat and the town wall, a wall that provides for a lovely walk around the town. If you ever get a chance to visit Göttingen, it's a wonderful place for feeling connected to Gauss and for celebrating his achievements. There's a lot of other history relating to mathematics and physics here too. And Göttingen is just a beautiful city to visit for its own sake.